welcome River City Media's Beyond the Booth special Wednesday edition tonight because we got a very special guest with us tonight that stays busy the rest of the week, but he managed to slide us in on this Wednesday afternoon. Coach Steve Smith of the Westbrook Christian. Coach, thanks for joining us, and we appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, wait till you get some of these questions first before you say that. No, let's kind of recap a little bit. We was talking before we went live about the summertime here in Alabama, as far as getting your stuff in early in the mornings before the heat really takes effect.
Yeah, we got all our kids at Westbrook working out. The girls come in the mornings early, and the guys come in late in the afternoon. So, the first couple of weeks of June, actually, when we worked out, it seemed like it rained a little bit every day, and so the temperatures were pretty nice. And this week we've got to experience that Alabama heat. We have a turf field that we do our conditioning and stuff on. It's been over 100 degrees on the field Monday and Tuesday for all the workouts. And so I told the kids I better just get used to that because that's probably what it's going to be like the rest of the summer.
How big of a difference is it going to be from the heat standpoint as far as your workout regimen? Are you going to take it a little easier on them, or just give them more breaks, or how will that work out?
Well, I think we've gotten a lot smarter over the years with giving them breaks and giving them more water and things of that nature. We're all, you and Phil and myself, we're all probably pretty close to the same age, and we probably remember the days of no water breaks and 3.5, 4 hour practices and 2 a days and things of that nature, and we've got so many rules now that are in place that I think that the AHSA wanted to implement along with the medical advisory to kind of take better care of kids. It's not really any hotter now, I guess, than it was back 40 years ago when we were in school. But I do think that because of the lifestyles that we have now, these kids, they're more athletic than we were. They're bigger than we were. They're stronger than we were. But, we all grew up outside. And if you had an air conditioner in the house, it was usually in the kitchen where your mama cooked, and you didn't have it all. You didn't have central heat or cooling all through the house. You didn't have, I can remember when I was about 15, we got our first car that had factory air. You rode around with the windows down, and you can all remember those days at the schoolhouses. We didn't have air conditioning in school. They had those big old fans that sit up there by the teacher that didn't have a back on it. And they always told you don't put your hand back there to cut your hand off. But that big old fan that blew so loud you could hardly hear what was being said in the classroom. But so everything that we did probably was at 85 to 90 degrees. And so being outside practicing ball wasn't that much of a difference for us. But kids today, they're in a 70-degree home, they're in a 70-degree car, they're in a 70-degree classroom. And so when you walk out on the field and it's 95 to 100 degrees now, it's about a 30-degree difference. So I do think that acclimation time, the rules that the AHSA and the medical advisory have implemented about more breaks and, having practice times and not having back-to-back days or 2-a-days and all those things has probably been in the best interest of the kids.
Yeah,
you kind of touched on something.
Kind of sort of to sum on that, the game's changed a lot now too, in that it used to be a real physical game. Line up, best man won. Now it's a lot more agility, how not to get hit, get kids in space, a lot more running than there used to be.
I agree with that. And, as far as practice goes, we've had to learn to practice smarter. I've coached 1A through 3A ball my whole life. And so usually you're working with limited numbers. And I was always taught you scrimmaged every day and you went best against best every day. And over the course of time and losing some players and during practice to injuries, trying to, go best on best to prove a point, we've learned to practice a little smarter, I think. And even the most hardcore guys, the guys that have been doing it for a long time, most of us are just a couple of days a week in full pads and probably really limited on the amount of contact that we do to the ground in full pads. We still do those things and still teach tackling, 2 to 3 days a week. And just so you're not shocked by it when you get in the game on Friday nights. But the old days of scrimmaging for an hour and a half, 3 days a week, and maybe even on Thursday if the coach didn't like Monday through Wednesday, those days are pretty much in the past. And you're just really trying to get everybody, healed up from the previous Friday night and trying to get everybody as close to 100% as you can for the following Friday night, ready to play on Friday night in the games.
Yeah, touching on that a little bit, I've told some of these younger coaches, I remember going to games back when I was young and watching warm-ups before the game, and actually having players having to take them off the field because they got hurt during the warm-ups because they were full-blown tackling and hitting and everything.
I can remember some people that we played against playing bull in the ring in the pregame, and the coach. I even remember a coach or two being in the middle and being a little bloody from being the bull. So definitely times have changed for sure. That you don't see a whole lot of that in the pregame anymore. And again, I think most of us coaches, I would consider myself old school, but most of us now are really concerned with just trying to get everybody as close to 100% healthy as we can to get them out there on Friday nights.
I got one more question, and then I'll turn you over to Phil. Something you touched on was the air conditioning and everything, and I think air conditioning has not hurt just athletes, but people in general being used to the certain temperature and everything. How big of a difference is it, do you feel like it's been with athletes as far as going from, like you said, no heat and air to actually working out in an air conditioned situation?
It's definitely changed things. We remodeled the weight room when I was at Piedmont. The weight room when I was at Cedar Bluff was in the basement of the school, so it was a little bit cooler anyway. And then the new weight room that we got at Westbrook now, the remodel at Piedmont and then the weight room at Westbrook are air conditioned. And as a coach, I was thinking to myself, what are we doing here, air conditioning the weight rooms to get them in, because I used to always like for them to be good and sweaty and the weight room to be steamy and things like that. But, it is just the way things are now. And it's part of the game. It's part of having to do the heat acclimation, and part of the things that we have to do, with the way we practice. Used to be, it was, you go 3 days in shorts, and after that you could just strap on the pads and go kill each other for the next 2.5 weeks and get ready for the season. And nowadays, it takes somebody with a PhD to be able to understand what the practice rules are for the first 3 weeks going into the season, because you can't hit back-to-back days, and you can't go more than 90 minutes at this day. If you go twice, you got to have at least this many hours in between practices, and can't go back-to-back days of 2 a day. So like I said, you got to be a really smart person just to understand what the rules are. But the acclimation going outside and trying to get into the heat after coming out of the air conditioning in the weight room and everywhere else, it is definitely something that you have to, keep your eye on. And we have ice baths ready at the end of every workout, just in case somebody does overheat. They do a really good job of making sure we all understand how to look for signs of heat illness and things. And, there's a fine line between somebody really struggling and just trying to tell them to suck it up and get tougher, and that's hard for us as coaches to know, what that line is, because we're conditioned to push them to their limits. But at the same time, you don't ever want to have that on your hands if you're pushing somebody beyond that point. So it definitely, the heat acclimation is probably the number one thing that is a concern to coaches these days.
Phil, fire away
All
to
right.
Mr.
All right. Well, Coach, something you had mentioned about working out, you have the girls come in and the boys come in. Do all athletes at Westbrook, all sports, work out together?
We do. We come in during the summer, and we have middle school girls that come in at 8, varsity girls come in at 9, and the middle school boys come in at 4 in the afternoon, and varsity boys come in at 5. And I just think that does a lot, small school wise, of kind of promoting, multi-sport athletes. And the good part about it, and something I'm really thankful for, had it at Piedmont, now I have it here at Westbrook. All of our coaches participate. I mean, if you came to our workouts yesterday afternoon, you saw our head baseball coach was there, head basketball coach was there, a couple of their assistants were there. Of course, all the football coaches were there, soccer coach was there. If you were there in the morning, you saw volleyball, girls basketball, softball. You just saw all those sports represented with their coaches. And we've got a strength and conditioning coach full-time, a guy named Chad Phillips that does an outstanding job. And he's done a good job of bringing and incorporating those coaches from all those sports. And they all know the workout program. We just do a general body workout. We don't do a football workout, a basketball workout, a baseball workout, or a volleyball. We just do a general overall body workout, and they all do the same things. We want kids to be stronger and faster and be able to jump higher. So nothing really special about what we do, but it is consistent across the board. And I think it promotes a lot of harmony, within the athletic program at the school when you got everybody doing the same things.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what that brings in too is you'll have some kids that may play multi sports that wasn't thinking about that before. I remember when Larry Rose was at Stevenson or North Jackson, and he would talk about that. He'd have players come in that were golfers, but they'd have to work out with everybody else. And he says, "Hey, you do the same thing the football players do. Why don't you play football?" And that was, a way of getting players to play multi sports.
Yeah, very, very true. I think the last year I was at Piedmont, 22-23 school year, I think we had 33 guys that played three sports. And, they weren't all football, basketball, baseball. They might have football, then wrestling and track. But small schools, Westbrook, where I'm at now for sure, we're 2A numbers, but with the 1.35 multiplier, we're 3A. And then we've had a couple of our teams, baseball's played 4A, soccer plays 5A because of the competitive balance. We're not big enough, though, to have just football players and just baseball or just soccer or just volleyball or just softball. Typically, like it is in most small schools, those kids need to play multiple sports, for the teams to be most successful. And I do think having a unified athletic club, having a unified workout program, having a unified sports banquet, a lot of those things I think contribute to promoting that sense of harmony and coaches working together and being the best that we can be at our level with as many kids participating.
Well, Coach, I want to turn back the clock a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about family. Your wife, Rachel, of course, she retired from coaching softball at Piedmont in 2024. Outstanding coach. I know y'all were both inducted into the Cherokee County Sports Hall of Fame in 2024. Congratulations for that. I'm sure that was a huge honor for both of y'all. And then you had three of your kids that had grown up, basically at Piedmont, Sloan and Sean, and then Savannah just finished playing softball. What was it like to having them around the program, not only for you, but also for Rachel?
Oh, man, we wouldn't trade it for anything. It was a great experience. We were very fortunate to stay in there for 17 years myself, and Rachel still works for the school system. She's just not coaching anymore, but we're some of the few that can say that our kids got to go to one school for their whole life. All they went to was Piedmont from kindergarten all the way through our pre-K, even all the way through graduation, and having the opportunity to coach Sean and Sloan in football, and I also did junior high baseball. Tell everybody I coached a bat and ball sport. I did baseball or softball for the first 25 years that I was coaching, and Savannah was softball, and Rachel coaching that program for 11 years, and getting to watch her come up as a bat girl, and then middle school player and a varsity player, and the boys, literally, they grew up at the field house. I can remember them from 4 or 5 years old running around down there and hanging out with the players and the coaches messing with them and just the village that you talk about, man, the environment of having your kids there and getting everybody to be involved. And, some of our fondest memories was being able to have our whole family together for a regional softball big win, when Rachel and Savannah were together, or a state championship victory, and having everybody in the locker room getting a picture with a trophy or something at Tuscaloosa or Auburn or UAB. Just wouldn't trade anything for that. Feel very blessed and thankful. And, Rachel did an outstanding job with the softball program at Piedmont. I think the last 4 years that she coached, they made their first 4 appearances at the state tournament. And I think they went to the regional tournament like 8 out of 11 years. But going to the final 8 there at the state tournament at Oxford, and all 4 of those years were Savannah freshman through senior year. And just getting to go and cheer them on and watching the boys play in the state baseball championship. I think Sean got to play in a couple of those, and Sloan played in a couple, and just
Coach.
Oh,
Coach is on his phone, so more likely he got a phone call or a text that came in.
knocked him off. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll do it every time.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
I tried to call.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
Yeah.
But just having the opportunity for us to all get to be together and experience those highs, and then we all experience some lows as well, but getting to do it as a family, that was really something that was special. And now our kids they're 19, 21, 23. They're in school or got their own things going on, but we still have them living at home with us. They're going to Jack State, and Sean graduated, and he's on staff there with the football team at Jack State, helping out. Going to be a GA in the fall, and Sloan works a job at the farm up in Ellisville, and Savannah playing softball at Jacksonville State. They're still really busy, but that sense of family, that's always been the number one priority in my life, and everything that we do. is family oriented, and I'm just so thankful to have had the opportunity to have those other four around me, and for all the times that we've had together coaching and playing and watching each other and supporting each other. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, of course, one of these days you'll have them little grandkids running around, hopefully in the future, and that'll be something really to look forward to. Well, tell us a little bit about Rachel. What has she meant to you over the years, and also in that, how did y'all meet?
We actually met. A little brother of my best friend from school was in her graduating class, and I just made an off the wall comment one night when I saw her that I said, that sure is a pretty young lady. We both graduated Cherokee County High School, but we never went there at the same time. It was center when I was there. We both wound up graduating from Jack State, but we never were there at the same time. I was at Jacksonville State. She was playing slow pitch softball at Gadsden State. And then when I got out and got a job, she had her last 2 years at Jack State. But, I made that comment, and somehow or another it made it back to my best friend's little brother. And he come home the next day and said, why don't you call her? And so that's just kind of how it started. But, Rachel's been a great supportive person, supportive wife, great family person, terrific mom, very competitive. That's one thing that we have in common. I tell people this story, and they say, how did you know that you had the right one? And just like anybody else that was nervous, like on a first date, I asked her what she wanted to do. And, I give you 3 guesses what she wanted to do, Phil. You gonna take a gander at what she wanted to do on the first date?
Go to a ball game?
Ball game, not yet, but you're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people say y'all went to a movie. No, not the first time. The first thing we did on a date, she wanted to go to the batting cages.
Oh.
So we got a roll of quarters and went down to the batting cages there across from the complex at Gadsden, and we hit baseball and softball for a couple hours. And I thought, man, what a cool thing right here to have a first date, and the girl, you ask her what she wants to do, and she wants to go to the batting cages. I thought this might be really, really good if I don't mess it up.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So, and it's all been well ever since then, which is a good thing. Well, I want to ask you about this. Of course, you played football at Cherokee County, played under Bobby Joe Johnson. You also played at Jacksonville. Of course, you were unofficial All-State at Cherokee County. We hear of Bobby Joe Johnson. I've known him because we know he was around at Cherokee County during my day, during my day. Tell us a little bit about him. What kind of individual was, and how has he influenced for you as a football coach?
Coach Johnson was a unique individual. He come across with that aw shucks attitude, and he called everybody feller, and he just seemed so laid back and easygoing. But he was a really intense person when you were on the field. Fun guy to play for. He was tough. He didn't put up with a lot of nonsense, but I remember him telling me one time when I was in coaching, he said, fella, if you got more than about 35 out there, you ain't working them hard enough. But his philosophy was he wanted kids that was willing to play, physical, hard-nosed football. I was a quarterback for him, and I tell everybody my senior year, we opened it up, and in 12 games, I think I threw 90 passes. And so we averaged about 7.5 passes a game, and that was really him airing it out. And he trusted me enough as a senior that he would let 2 receivers go out. Up until my senior year, we were a base power I team, so we had a full house backfield. Of course, we had the Houstons in the backfield and Pat Trammell, so it was pretty smart for us to run the ball. But I tell everybody, 3rd and less than 10 was still a running play for us. And but his son Mark was a grade behind me and was a really, really good receiver, that went to Auburn. And we threw the ball a good bit more my senior year. And if I was lucky, he would let one of those backs out of the backfield, kind of bubble out in the flat, so we'd have a second option. But Coach Johnson was a loving guy. He was a guy that if you was in his circle, it was an honor for me. But when Coach passed, they asked me to be one of the pallbearers, and his circle was pretty much limited to his players and his teams. But I felt really close to him just because of the way that he kind of brought me along. And I didn't listen to him. He told me, feller, he said, when I graduate, he said, do anything you want to, but don't be a coach. He said, whatever you do, don't be a coach. He said, it's long hours, it's little pay, it's not a lot of appreciation. He said, just make sure you're not a coach. And so I did right the opposite. And he reminded me of that many times over the years. Even there in his latter years when his grandkids were playing at center, he'd come over to when plays at Piedmont, and he would come over and he'd even bring his golf cart over and ride his golf cart around the track to the visiting side, and he'd see me, and he'd just remind me all the time that I didn't listen to him. There I was being a coach, and so having him was a big part. And then playing for Coach Burgess at Jack State, very similar type style, hard nosed, no nonsense type guy, but very loving on his team and his players, and do anything for the players. Players run through the wall for him. He's the one that pulled me aside when I got my degree at Jacksonville State. I tell people this all the time. My degree was in computer science because I like math, and in 92, people was making a lot of money with a computer science degree. Coach Burgess put his arm around me right there in the fall of 92 and said, boy, you're going to be a great coach one day. So he was right the opposite of what Coach Johnson said. He brought me on and let me be a student coach after my playing time was up down there. And I was a student coach for Coach Burgess, and he was kind of the one that pointed me in the direction of coaching, which is really what I wanted to do all along anyway. And so I was just very fortunate to play for those two men and have that opportunity to learn from them. And a lot of the things that we do in our program today is modeled after some of the philosophies that they had.
Yeah, definitely. And from what I understand about Bill Burgess, he was one of those coaches, kind of a big family guy. He, you don't see that very much anymore. It seemed like he was kind of that big family guy. As all of his coaches, well, close knit, and he was very successful on the field.
No doubt. Like I said, both those guys that I played for, they did a great job of modeling family, and got to watch Coach Johnson. I played with two of his three sons when I was there. You saw Coach Johnson all the time at the Little League parks because we were all the same age growing up, and we were playing Dixie Youth baseball and then playing, 5th and 6th grade basketball. And Coach Beckett was always his sidekick, his right-hand guy, and Alan was his son was in my grade, and we grew up together. So you just kind of got to know your coaches really well because they were family-oriented, and they were at all the activities that we were at, even when we were growing up. And then Coach Burgess always just made it a point. He tells a lot of the people, his staff there at Jack State was a lot of high school coaches, a lot of people he brought with him from Oxford, and then assistant coaches later on were people that had come through the program at Jack State, and just all very tight knit and very close. And that's something that I really admired about both of them.
Well, and I think when Coach Burgess left, when his time was finished, a lot of those coaches on his staff went back to high school.
They did. Yeah. And a lot of them had successful careers as coaches. Some of them were administrators, principals. But, it was a real humble group of people that I was with when I was down there. I think we had about 30. I think one day we counted up there 35 of us that went into coaching during that time frame of 88 to 92 when I was there. And I'm sure we missed some people, but that's just kind of unheard of to have that many people go in the coaching profession. And then a lot of the assistant coaches like Jay Brown and Coach Maniscalco and Joe Billingsley and all those guys, wound up going back to high school ranks either as principals or coaches themselves. And we all stayed in touch for a long period of time. And just the bond that we had and the memories that we had both from my high school days at Center and the college days at JSU, had some lifetime friends that were made at both of those stops.
Well, of course, you in 92, I think it was, they won the national championship, and you was a grad assistant on that team. But then you got into high school coaching. Your first job was at Cedar Bluff, a traditionally very strong football school, but it didn't start out exactly the way you wanted, I'm sure. I think Bobby Mintz, he's the one that hired you there. It didn't go well at first. I think you went 2-8 your first year. So,
Correct.
And I'm sure when a coach first steps in, he thinks he can change the world, but he gets a rude awakening real quick.
Exactly right. Coach Mintz, I owe a lot to him and thank him a lot for the opportunity that he gave me. Not only the first opportunity, but the second opportunity to come back after I pretty much destroyed a really tradition-proud place there at Cedar Bluff that first year. You mentioned we were 2-8, and I didn't know anything. I was 24 the day they hired me. I was 24. I turned 25 I met the players at the first day of practice. I didn't get hired till the last week of July. Mr. Mintz had been the assistant principal, head football, head baseball, and lead math teacher, and he got promoted to principal the last week of July, and he needed somebody with that kind of turnaround time that could coach football, baseball, and was a math teacher, and I happened to fit the bill. That's how I got that job. Wasn't like there was a lot of people out there that fit that criteria. But, I got over there and had Joe Carpenter and Dwayne Pierce and Jason Howard helping me. And, really, really good guys that were helping, and they could kind of steer me in the right direction on how things went at Cedar Bluff. I had been an assistant for 1 year at Center, my alma mater, and I'd been an assistant for 1 year at Coosa over in Rome, Georgia. And that was really all the experience I had on the high school level. I had that 1 year as a student assistant at Jack State in 92. But I go in the fall of 95 as the head coach at Cedar Bluff at 25 years old. Young, dumb, and stupid. Didn't know anything about running a program. All I knew was what I had experienced. And I tell everybody we went 2-8. We got beat by an undefeated Crossville team the last game of the year. It's probably the best team that Coach Garman had when he was at Crossville, that 95 team. And they beat us on a Thursday night, week 10, for us to finish off that 2-8 season. And we finished up with 13 players. I had just about shut the program down in one fall. Kids, it was just crazy. They didn't make the run, and I just sent them home. They didn't do this right. Just go pack your locker up. It was some foolish stuff, and I always tell Mr. Mintz every time I see him, because we remained good friends over the years. He was my only administrator for the 11 years I was at Cedar Bluff, and I thank him every time I get a chance for not only giving me the chance at Cedar Bluff, but most importantly, giving me the second chance to get to come back for year number 2, because I probably didn't deserve to come back for year number 2 just based on the work on the field. But they helped me a lot grow up and had really supportive people. I tell everybody a lot, I wouldn't take anything for those 11 years I had at Cedar Bluff, and the people that I worked with there in our booster club and administration and faculty. I had the time of my life there. Rachel and I, Sean and Sloan, had been born, and we had actually bought some land in Cedar Bluff, getting ready to build a house. When I actually got the call about the Piedmont job, we were very content with just being there at a 1A school for the next 30 years. And I really loved my time there, and we had some great teams and great players. I had some chances there to make deep runs and just fell a little bit short. But the time that I spent there is something that I'll always treasure and never forget, because it kind of laid the foundation for where we're at even today. We played Westbrook Christian. It's kind of funny, but Brody Kroll is the one that hired me, and my Cedar Bluff teams, when he was coming through school, we played them every year from his 8th grade on when he was at Westbrook Christian. And, we had a lot of things that we could talk about just in common from back in the day when he talked to me about this job that I'm at now. And, that was such a big pivotal time, instrumental in my personal career, but in my family and all having that opportunity at Cedar Bluff. I'll always be forever grateful for that.
Yeah, you had some great football teams. I know a consistent winner before you left there. What attracted you to the Piedmont job?
Honestly, Rachel and I were working together at Cedar Bluff and had a combined income of such and such. And we had 2 kids. She was pregnant with Savannah. We were fixing to have 3 kids in daycare. And basically, she wanted to be home with the kids. She wanted to be home. She had missed the first 4 years with Sean and the first 2 years with Sloan. And we wanted her to be able to be at home with the kids. That's why she's not retired yet. She would be retired when I retired had we not had some time off there. But the Piedmont job came available, and Mr. Aiken, the superintendent, talked to me about it. Being from Center, Piedmont to Center was like Alabama to Auburn. We were bitter rivalries, and you're not supposed to, if you're from Center, you're not supposed to want to coach at Piedmont. I knew so little about Piedmont. I didn't even know it was a city system. I didn't even know it. I thought it was part of the Calhoun County system. And my first tip that it was a little bit different was when I went over and talked to him about the job, the guy that kind of headed it up was the superintendent. And he and the principal, Mr. McCorder, were the ones that interviewed me, but he started talking about, what the pay was going to be, and it was going to be a range. And I had no idea anything like that even existed. I always just worked in Cherokee County, and this is what you made as a teacher, and this is what you made to be the football coach. And you just took it and didn't say nothing about it. That's what it was. And he started talking about, let's negotiate this, or let's talk about this. And I'm like, time out here, what's going on? And long story short, it was a financial move in the beginning that allowed Rachel to be able to stay home with the kids like we wanted to do, and we could afford to do it with what I could make at Piedmont. That was really, now I will say this, I say that kind of tongue in cheek. I also remembered how good Piedmont was in the late 80s and early 90s. And so this was 2005-06, and you start doing the math, and you start saying, that's about 20 years later. Well, guess what? I asked Mr. Aiken, I said, can you get me the rosters of everybody K through 12? And he did. He thought it was kind of an odd request. But I started looking down there, and I started seeing names. I saw Teague. I saw Ammons. I saw Jackson. I saw names that were synonymous with those really, really good Griffey. I saw names that were synonymous with those really good Piedmont teams. And I thought, a place that's been good before, it has a good chance that it can be good again. And sure enough, it turned out that way. We had really, really fine teams there at Piedmont. And most of those teams were kids that had played on the really, really good Piedmont teams in the late 80s, early 90s. It was their kids, and it was their nephews. So there was a little strategy there with asking about those rosters, because I wanted to make sure that those second and third generation Piedmont kids were coming. They were, and their dads and granddads, they had no problem with us coaching them up tough, because it didn't matter. I always heard it didn't matter how hard I pushed them. It wasn't going to be harder than Coach Hobbs pushed them, or harder than Coach Farrell pushed their granddaddies. And so everybody always said, Coach, you just take them, do what you got to do with them. We just want to win football games. And so had great support there the whole time from administration, faculty, community, booster club. I mean, Piedmont is a top-notch place, and in my opinion, it was the top. When I left there, I felt like it was the top job in the state, any classification. Now, I think Westbrook's a pretty good gig right now as well. So I've been very fortunate in my career. The three places I've been at three really, really good places with great support, great administration, great kids at all of them, and a lot of really, really good help. So I've been really blessed with having those good situations.
Yeah, you was talking about, Coach Hobbs. I kind of knew who he was, because he was at Valley Head at one time. So I always kind of kept up with him when he started. Piedmont got put on the map. They made some very deep runs in the playoffs. Had some great teams, and that was a lot of the times when you started hearing they were on radio a lot, and so you got to listen to them, at that time. But yeah, there were some great teams there. So the tradition at Piedmont has been good. When you first got there, what are some of the things you kind of did to lay down the foundation? I know you're probably doing that same type of thing here at Westbrook, because you start kind of sort of build the program to where it's going to be solid long term. It's not going to be a short term fix, but you're going to build a program to where it's going to be solid long term.
Yeah, I've got two big philosophies that I have never deviated from. The first one we've already kind of talked about a little bit: multi-sport athletes. I really think it's important, and I've got to be the AD at the places too, so I've got to a lot of times have some input on the hires on the other coaches to hire like-minded people that want everything to be good. And I think our basketball and baseball coaches will tell you, just because I was a football coach, I still want those programs to be good. Track, wrestling, all the things that we had, I was always very supportive of them. I wanted their kids to be in the best shape they can be in as well. But I think it's very important, Phil, that you got all the coaches on board that we want to do what's best for the school. And then if that means sharing athletes, then we got to get all those kids to play everything that they can help. So that's my first thing. And then my second thing, as it pertains to football, is I have a very much hands-on approach all the way down to the 5th and 6th grade youth league. I think I tell people all the time, as a coach, you want to have a right-hand man, a good coordinator, assistant head coach that you can really count on. The next person to me a lot of times is a really, really good middle school coach. I want somebody that you can really count on, that's going to, not have a big ego, and they understand you're not playing for middle school championships, but you're playing to develop guys for the program. And then I've had a hand in the, who coached the Pee Wee teams. And, it wasn't always they had to do everything exactly the way we did, but if you're teaching them something from scratch, you might as well be teaching them some things that's going to play into how they're going to evolve into the middle school program, middle school and high school. And that's, if you went and watched Piedmont's Pee Wee team, if you come watch the Pee Wee team at Westbrook, we started it back last year, my second year, and I actually was the head coach of the 5th and 6th grade team. And you go out there and you look, those guys are lined up in the same base formations on offense and defense that the high school is. The middle school teams do the same thing. And I just believe that there's two philosophies. You can either build a team. That a lot of times you see people come in and stay 3 or 4 years and they'll have a really good year and they get gone, or you can build a program. And if your goal is that you want to build a program, then you have to get down there in the elementary school and you have to get those kids involved, and you have to sell, in this case, Westbrook Christian football. There's been some blips on the radar where Westbrook's been really good. They had a state runner-up in '97. They've had some region championships, I think 5 of them in the history of the program. They've had some 10-win seasons. But consistently doing it, for a 10, 15-year period of time, they've a lot of times went through the same things that a lot of small schools do with the talent cycles and things. And we're just trying to develop our kids at Westbrook and lay a foundation where we can be very good for a long period of time. That's basically my two philosophies.
Well, and part of that, I can remember when we was down around the program some, when Jeff and I visited, and they was telling us about things you did, like with the elementary school kids that were the pup club, to get them involved in the program and things like that. And I've always thought you've done a great job of taking a lot of interest in the kids. Do you spend a lot of time with your kids getting to know them as people?
I do. I think relationship is the most important part. I mean, it's whether it's a marriage, whether it's a church group, whether it's a football team, relationships is the most important part. You got to know your people away from the game. You got to know them. I think it's important to be able to interact with them during the school day. And one of the things that Westbrook has kind of brought back to me, we're a K through 12 environment, just like we were at Cedar Bluff when I first started. And so every single day, I can see every student at Westbrook Christian School from 3K all the way up to seniors. I think it's big that you're able to go into those elementary rooms and talk to them and get them fired up about youth football, or give them a sheet that says, hey, you're going to 6th grade next year, and then you can get to be middle school when you get to 7th, and just involving them in the things, trying to find ways to involve them to make them feel like they're part of the program. And then even going out and doing that in the community with having volunteers, that you can count on. One of my biggest pet peeves, I tell this people all the time, is being on the road for a Friday night game, and just before kickoff, the PA guy comes on and says, hey, we need 3 volunteers on the chains. To me, that should never happen. And so for the last 25 years, I've had the same chain crew at the places I've been. It's been the same guys pretty much all that time. I ask them to wear khaki pants, and I give them a collared shirt that says Westbrook Christian on it, and we're going to try to look professional on the sideline. But I'm going to know those guys are going to be there every Friday night to do that. And just little things like that, not having to get a volunteer on the PA, not having to get a volunteer to spot. I tell people it takes about 30 to 40 people, time you do gatekeepers and parking lot people, to make a Friday night go off. So just having dependable people in the community and having a lot of people that feel like they're part of the program, I think that atmosphere is what gives you an opportunity to build something that's sustainable for years to come.
Yeah, part of something special, and I'm always in that philosophy. Uniforms is a big thing to me. How you dress is how you play. If you look good
Right.
in that uniform, you're going to look good on the field.
Right, I agree with you. I think you ought to take pride, and that's something that we've tried to make sure we emphasize at Westbrook. And I'm still old school. We try to all dress the same, and black shoes, white socks. It's kind of I know it's not too much to 2025 mentality, but I still believe in team. Team is my number one thing I preach. Anybody that's ever been around me from any of the 3 stops I've been at, I think we're really making a critical mistake. We're cheating the sport with all this stuff that we're doing with recruiting and promoting one player or promoting 2 or 3 players. You look at the most successful programs in this state over the last 30 or 40 years, and when you watch them play, you see a sense of team, and you see a sense of pride and community, and people still placing the team above their individual accolades is what this game of football and high school level is all about. And regardless of the pros, regardless of the junk that we see going on in college right now with the portal and people getting paid crazy amounts of money, football is still one of the best teachers for young men growing up in their life and one of the best experiences of their life. And I want to never forsake that concept of team first.
Yeah, definitely. So I understand that. And the thing is, too, I thought you did a great job, Piedmont. I'm sure you're doing the same thing at Westbrook, getting the community involved. You know, it seemed like everybody wanted to step up and share their part and be a part of the program. And that's probably by design by you, because the more people you can feel like they're part of the program, they're going to bend over backwards to try to get things done.
No doubt. That was something. Again, I go back to my Cedar Bluff days. That was a proud community. You go back to the 60s with Coach Bruce there and the run that they had there over a 4 or 5 year window where they had like an unbeaten streak for like 5 years. And those people had a lot of pride in Cedar Bluff football. Piedmont, obviously, a lot of pride in Piedmont football and all the people all the wonderful help we had over the years. You know, you go to a private school and it is a little bit different in the sense that a lot of times those people are not the predominant group in their neighborhood. You know, it's one of those situations. I can remember when I was at Piedmont, we'd play Madison Academy when they were in their heyday, and Carry-On Johnson, Malik Miller, all those guys, and we would play them at their place in the playoffs, and there would be 200 people in the stands. I know because I could count them, and I'm thinking, why are their stands not full? And I asked their coach one day, I said, I can't believe you don't have better support. And he said, Steve, you got to realize we're in Madison. He said, you got 2 7A schools here in Bob Jones and James Clemens. 95% of these people don't care the first thing about Madison Academy. The only people we got are really the people here. You said, when y'all were coming in, you didn't see any of the businesses have their windows painted up for Madison Academy, did you? And I said, well, no, I didn't. He said, you didn't see yard signs out in the yard that I got a Mustang that lives here. He said, we basically have what we have of the people we have here right now. And it kind of hit home to me. Then we played some private schools in the state championship game, Mobile Christian, Montgomery Academy. Baseball played Trinity, which had really good support, I will say. I played against St. James, and you know, I kind of saw that again. You know, the small community crowd that they had. You know, even though they were great programs, they just didn't have the same kind of following that you had at a Piedmont or a Fife or somewhere like that. And so that's what I was kind of anticipating when I got to Westbrook. But what I found since I've been there, Phil, is there's a lot of people that love Westbrook athletics. We've got a lot bigger following at Westbrook than the average private school crowd. There's a lot of people there that live in Rainbow City that really support Westbrook Christian School that may not even have anybody on the team. And I'm very, very thankful for that, because it certainly went against the notion of what I was expecting when I got there. But we got a big home side, and we pretty much fill that thing up every Friday night. And we hadn't really accomplished a whole lot yet. I've told them, I said, if we ever get this thing to where I want to get it to and where I think it can get to, there's not going to be enough room for the people that want to come support, because anybody will tell you that when you're winning, the support gets a lot better. And we've had really good support, and we've had 2 pretty average seasons my first 2 years there.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, Coach, going back to talk a little bit more about Piedmont, 5 state championships when you were there, very successful career. You've now won, I think, 294 games. Do you kind of sometimes have to pinch yourself, because 5 state championships, that's pretty darn good?
Yeah, no, I really say this with all sincerity, Phil. I've been so lucky everywhere I've been with the help I've had, first of all, from assistant coaches, loyal assistant coaches, terrific administration. You know, all the principals I worked for at Piedmont, 3 of them total at the high school, 2 superintendents, very, very supportive. Booster Club, there was a guy named Mike Pody, was Booster Club president over there the whole time I was there. His kids had done long come and gone, but he just loved Piedmont, and he was able to pull those Booster Club people in and get them to work and raise money for the program altogether. You know, and then the most important thing is just great kids and really good players, kids that let you work them hard and they bought into the philosophy of team first and didn't really care who got the credit. I would use that comment from Coach Wooden. It's amazing what can be accomplished when nobody cares who gets the credit. And, one of the things that we kind of did at Piedmont that was a little different that most 3A schools weren't doing was we'd play kids one way. And there was a lot of those kids that could have been two-way starters and probably heard stories of their dads being two-way starters and all, but they would play one side of the ball and somebody else play the other side for the betterment of the team, and having fresh people in there at the end of the season, end of the games, and just people buying into those things was the most important thing. So it was a humbling experience for me to get to be a part of all that success. I was very fortunate to be the guy that was, quote, the head coach, but it was certainly a team effort all the way around, from the support, the administration, the faculty, the community, the booster club, our families, our assistant coaches, and mainly the players. Just the times that we had there was certainly a reflection of a lot of work by a lot of people.
Well, and I've said this several times. I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but, you and Coach Benefield both, mainly they were most time you were 3A. But it seems like these two programs raised the bar for everybody else. Used to our teams down here got beat out early in the playoffs. Y'all had a pretty good bit of success, but most teams, 1 or 2 rounds, they were gone. Right. Well, then y'all started having great success. 5 started, and it seemed like it raised the bar for everybody else because y'all became the standard. Now, Northeast Alabama football is very, very good. We see a lot of teams make deep runs in the playoffs that we used to not see.
Yeah, I think you make a great point in there. Everybody's been kind of chasing 5 for the last 20 years, but you just look at the quality of football that, say, Geraldine's putting on the field every year, year in, year out. Sylvania making a run to the semifinals. I got to thinking that just in the time that I was at Piedmont, you had Ohatchee that made a semifinal run. Welborn made a semifinal run. Weaver was in the 3rd round 2 or 3 times. Those were just people that were our classification. Sachs was in the semifinals, I think, 3 times between 3A and 4A. And, just seeing the quality of football in those areas, I do think that it was kind of contagious, that it was kind of rubbing off. And then my old alma mater, Cherokee County, which is not Calhoun County with me, but it's just 15 miles up the road. They've been in 3 state championship games in a row in 4A, and I think they played in maybe 6 or 7 championship games themselves since 2005. And I think one of the best kept secrets is Northeast Alabama and our football up here. And district wise, that's District 6, District 8 that don't get all the publicity that the District 5 Birmingham does or District 1 Mobile does. But there's several years I know in 3A that we played. I think 6 of the 7 times we played in the state championship game, maybe 5 of the 7 times, 6 or 7 or 5 of 7 times we played a region rematch in the semifinals to go to the championship game. So, there was, I know, at least 2 years where all 4 teams in the quarterfinals was from the same region. And in 3A, region 6 or 5, whichever, we kind of flip-flop. Some years it would be 5, some years it would be 6. But there was about a 4 or 5 year run there in a row where the championship game was Region 1, the Mobile region, Mobile Christian, those people, versus a Region 6 team. And, 5 has been the benchmark for 2A, and a couple of years there in 3A, they've been the standard, in their division. And I think we counted up one day, the 17 years I was at Piedmont, I think that 14 of the 17 years, we either went to the semifinals, finals, or the team that went to the finals beat us out in the playoffs. So I tell the kids all the time, at Westbrook, our goal obviously is to get the state championship, win the state championship, but we want to be in the conversation. To be in the conversation, you got to get to the point where the people that are playing for it have to at least go through you. Leeds was kind of the big bad wolf there for a little while at Piedmont, and we were able to get over that hump. And it's just kind of turned into one of those situations where the program kind of became the standard, at least for the North Alabama part of representation in the state championship game. And it was always fun to play in those environments and in those games. The big games, playing on Thanksgiving week and then the first week of December is nothing more special than that.
Well, I kind of sort of put you on the spot here when you was at Piedmont. Is there one game or one thing that you kind of sticks out as one of your favorite moments of your time there? And sometimes coaches remember losses a whole lot more than they do wins
Yeah.
because they kind of stick in their craw. Is there a game you had that just kind of still eats at you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I can tell you for sure. I mean, I can quickly recall some losses. I've tried to get better over the years and focus on the good times. I think there were some benchmark games for us at Piedmont. 2009 semifinals beating Leeds at Leeds to go to the championship game. We wound up beating Cordova the next week in Bryant-Denny for the state championship. But Leeds had beaten us twice the year before, region and in the third round. Then they had beaten us for the region championship in 2009 regular season. We went in there and won that game 13-7 and got to play the next week for the state championship. I think that was the game that probably put us on the map that, hey, we've arrived, because Leeds was the standard at that time. They had been really good for 2 or 3 years in a row with Coach Etheridge. So that game stood out in my mind as one of our monumental milestone wins. As far as tough losses go, we lost a semifinal game in 17 to Randolph County that we led 21-0 at halftime at home. That was one that sticks out in my mind. 2010, we had a chance to go back to the championship game, and we lost to Hamilton 28-24 on Thanksgiving weekend in a game that we just didn't play up to our capabilities, and I made some bonehead decisions in that game. And the 2018 state championship game, we had an overachieving bunch that really, really did a great job. That was the year after we had the collapse against Randolph County. We actually come back from being down 21-7 in the fourth quarter, and we won the game 26-21, got to the state championship game, and we were probably the favorite, and then we didn't have our best day there and lost to Flomaton. So that was one that sticks out in my mind. But then you also got 21 championship game. We were down 29-6 at halftime to Montgomery Academy. We come back and won 35-33. There, the first year the championships were at UAB. That was a really cool memory. We come back and won the 19 championship game against Mobile Christian, down 10-0 at halftime. We come back and won with about 30 seconds to go, 26-24. That was really special because Sean and Sloan were both on that team. Sean was a senior, Sloan was a freshman, so I had both my boys on the field with me that day as players. So that was pretty cool. Some big moments in the biggest games where our team really came through, and then obviously some heartbreaking losses that as coaches you kind of dwell on them and they stick with you. But it's all part of the memories. It's all part of the good times. They've been a lot more good times than bad, that's for sure. And as I've gotten older, I've tried to focus more on the good and instead of harping on the bad, because that does drive you crazy as a coach. Because I can tell you this, and this is not just coach speak. I think we've lost a lot more games because of my decisions than we've won because of my decisions. I really believe that. I think coaches a lot of times, get way too much of the credit when things go good. I really believe that we've won the majority of the games that we've won because our players were just better. And I do think there's been some times where I let them down as a coach because I felt like we had the better team and just didn't get it done because of my bad decisions. So that's what eats at you a lot of times as a coach, for sure. You always dwell on those things and what you could have done different, what you could have done better. But even saying all that, the goods far outweigh the bad, that for sure.
Well, Coach, I know you had a great career at Piedmont. Now you've moved over to Westbrook. I know Brody Crow, you've talked about Miss Neal. I mean, they had an interview with you. What made you decide to take, because I'm sure you could have stayed at Piedmont longer, but what made you decide to take that step, take over a new program, new challenge, to go to Westbrook?
Great environment. I'm a Christian. I'm a believer first and foremost. I don't mind sharing that with anybody. Having that opportunity to work in that environment was really cool. The school day environment. I go back to my Cedar Bluff Piedmont days. They were both great school day environments as well. It is a unique situation at Westbrook, a school day environment. It's kind of laid back. Kids are more treated like college than they are high school. They're expected to just do the right things and be where you're supposed to be. And they don't always do it. They are still teenagers. Just because we're a Christian school don't mean that they're not still teenagers. But, the school day environment's really good. I'm basically the football coach and athletic director. And, going back to my first 11 years there at Cedar Bluff when I was the lead math teacher taking over from Mr. Mintz in the classroom, I had 6 math classes, 7th grade through 12th grade. I had 6 math classes a day, and in my planning period, I'd do weightlifting with the football team, and then we'd practice, and then I'd coach baseball in the spring. My life got a little bit easier when I went to Piedmont because I was half a day doing the weight training, and another half a day I was the AD. I went to Westbrook. We got a strength and conditioning guy. I gave him the program that I want him to implement. He does the strength and conditioning, and I'm pretty much the athletic director and the football coach. So I look back at some of the things that we did as a coaching staff when I was at Cedar Bluff, and I figured, just how in the world did we get all that done? Because there's no way I got the energy right now at 54 that I had at 24 when I got to Cedar Bluff to be able to put in the time and all the things that we did back then. So one of the good things about Westbrook is it's a lot less stressful for me on a day-to-day basis because I'm working in the area that I feel like I've got, some pretty good knowledge, working with other coaches and doing the administrative part, athletic director, something I really enjoy. I never had any aspirations to be a principal or anything like that. Athletic director's as far up in his administration as I'd ever want to go. I still have a passion for wanting to coach. The kids at Westbrook are absolutely tremendous as far as that. They're hungry. They want to be good. They want to be pushed. And I think we're going to turn some heads this year. I really think that we're in a position to take that next step to be one of those teams that people will have to reckon with. And hopefully if we get it to that point, we're going to be that way for a long time. So, just that opportunity. And it is a little bit of a challenge. It's a challenge to see if your way can work in another place. And, it's been a lot of fun so far, first 2 years. And we're having a great summer this year, getting ready to go into year 3. And I'm really excited about what the future holds.
Well, when you talk about that, and I'm sure you're on that cusp where you feel like this program is destined for success. But the thing is, in the region you're in, you got a mountain to climb, because if you can get competitive in your region, you're ahead of the game, because the region is so tough. Traditionally strong schools, even when teams aren't real good in the region, most in your region are still traditionally good football programs and still have good football players.
No doubt. I think, when you look at our region, we were 4-4 in the region last year, and we finished in a 5-way tie for third. Piedmont was at the top of the region. Locust Fork was second. And then there was 5 of us tied for third. And those other 2 playoff teams wound up being Weaver and Ohatchee. Again, you got to be a genius to figure out what the tiebreakers are in the AHSA handbook. But, when you look at that, I just off the top of my head, without disrespecting anybody else, the success at Piedmont over the last 20 years. Welborn has been in the semifinals in 2019. Ohatchee was in the semifinals in 2016. Locust Fork, if I'm not mistaken, was in the semifinals in 2023 as a 2A school. Weaver has been a quarterfinal team numerous times. Glencoe was a semifinalist in 2014. I'm sure I'm missing somebody there, but Sachs is in the region. They've played in the semifinals, I think, 3 or 4 times in the last 10, 15 years. I know they played in it, I think, 3 times when Coach Miller was the head coach there. Everybody in our region has been a quarterfinal or a semifinal team in the last 15 years. There's not anybody in our region, I don't think. Pennington, I think, maybe has been a quarterfinalist. I don't know if they've ever been a semifinalist, but I remember playing Pennington when I was at Piedmont in the second round, I think, or third round, 2 or 3 different times. So there's not a cupcake in our region. I mean, just to be perfectly honest with you, everybody in our region is strong. Everybody in our region has some football tradition. Each and every week, we were 4-4 in the region last year, and we lost 3 games by a combined 10 points. It just didn't get it done. We fell a little bit short, but that's how competitive it was week in, week out, excuse me. And, I expect it to be much the same this coming fall.
Yeah, just to hope this time your guys get over that hump and
Right.
find a way, because really when it comes to football and you're in a program where you are, there's a lot of things you can do to get these kids in position to win football games, but they have to kind of figure it out for themselves.
No doubt. And, that's the thing. We've been preaching that the whole time I've been at Westbrook, is just having that mentality that we're supposed to win those games. And I go back to the Leeds game that I mentioned to you when I was at Piedmont in 2009. There was also a game in 2007 where we kind of got over the hump with Woodland. My first 2 years there, we were 2A, and, Woodland played in the state championship game in 2006. And they beat us twice. They beat us my first game at Piedmont, and they beat us in the first round of the playoffs. And then my second year there, they beat us in the first game of the season, and we wound up beating them in the second round of the playoffs and got to the quarterfinals against Red Bay that year. But that was those games. Once you start winning some of those games, it kind of becomes contagious. You start expecting to find ways to win those close games. And what's going to go right, we're going to make the play. We lost one game last year on an untimed down, last play of the game from the 4-yard line. We lost another game last year. But I can't remember all the scores. But my point is, I think when we start winning some of those close games at Westbrook, that it'll just rub off, and it will be more and more of, hey, what have we got to do to win this game? I go back to your example with Fife. Those kids at Fife, they think they're going to win every time they go on the field. That's what we had at Piedmont. We felt like we were going to win every time we went on the field. I didn't care who the other team was. And I go back to Fife's championship victory as a 3A school in 2020 when they knocked off Montgomery Catholic. And that game probably started off as bad for Fife as it could start off. If I remember right, it seems like Catholic jumped out on them like 16-0. And it looked like, to the naked eye, to a lot of people that were there, Fife's getting what they had coming to them. And I told them, I said, you wait a minute before you write them off. They'll go over the sideline. They'll figure it out. They'll get a little momentum. And then when they start hitting Catholic in the mouth, and Catholic don't really like that, let's talk again at the end of the fourth quarter and see what happens. And, of course, I think that game come down to the last play of the game, and Catholic threw like a Hail Mary in the end zone. And Fife had that moxie to them that they were supposed to win, and they didn't get off track when they got down 16-0. And that's what I tell people about our 2021. The very next year when we beat Montgomery Academy in the finals, we're down 29-6 at halftime. I didn't go in the locker room and start screaming and yelling and making accusations and pointing the finger at what was wrong. We just talked about, hey, this is what we got to do if we want to win the state championship. Let's just go back out there and let's play our ball. And our kids never doubted that we could come back. A lot of people thought, how in the world did that happen? Y'all were getting dominated 29-6 at halftime. And I said, there's just something about a Piedmont kid. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but they don't think they're supposed to lose. And it's just, and boy, as a coach, man, when you can walk on the field, when you can go out of your dressing room every night, and you can run through the victory line, and it don't even matter who's on the other sideline, those guys that's in your uniform think that they're going to win, that's half the battle.
Yeah, I understand. When I played at Bellhead in 1984, when we won the state championship, fourth quarter was ours. We didn't even talk about it. It just happened week after week after week when we got in the playoffs. We just knew, hey, fourth quarter comes around, it's ours.
Right.
Because usually we wore everybody out, mentally and physically. You're talking about that you finished 5-5 and 6-4, and you're on that cusp of being pretty good. Do you feel like, when you first come into a program, a lot of times players are kind of coach driven. Are you looking for this team to kind of become, and if you start having those wins, it'll happen to be more player driven, because that's where success comes from?
No doubt. Best teams are player driven. You ask at any level, when the players are driving the bus, and it's funny that we use that analogy because we did some things with our kids this off season, some mental training, and the energy bus and getting the right people on the bus. You've heard Coach Saban talk about you got to get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people that's on the bus, you got to get them in the right seat. We talked a lot about that this past off season. We actually had a guy come in, one of my former college coaches, that come in and did a little series with us on Wednesdays. And it was just talking about bringing the positive energy and getting on the right bus and doing things, and basically teaching the players to be the leaders, and when you go in new, a lot of times the kids are looking at you as the coach for the direction. And one thing I think our kids at Westbrook have done a great job of, they understand what the vision is. They understand what the expectations are. They understand the little things that Coach Smith's not going to budge off of. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're not going to budge. Those are things not going to compromise on. I think they've done a great job of figuring that out. And now the next phase of figuring it out is for that locker room to kind of be player-led more so than coaches coming in there and shouting out instructions every day. Teaching younger players, this is how we do things. This is the way we're going to go on the practice field every day. We're going to be out there for this amount of time. This is what we're going to do effort-wise. And everybody's going to make their condition. Everybody's going to do what they're supposed to not let the team down. We're not going to talk about individual goals and awards. We're not talking about scholarships and recognition. We're just talking about Westbrook. Our first two, our shirts that we're wearing this summer, it's got big OWE and then smaller STBROK, trying to emphasize it. It's a we thing. We're never going to be good enough at Westbrook just to run on the field and out talent people. That's just not going to be the case. There's always going to be people that we're going to play, whether it's the third round of the playoffs, fourth round, championship game, regular season, region game. We're never just going to walk out there and beat people on God-given ability. We're going to have to beat people through hard work, and we're going to have to beat people with a sense of team and we. And as long as we is the most commonly used word in the locker room, us, our, I love those words a lot better than I or me or you or whatever. So just trying to change that mentality on how we go about our business and everything's our team, everything, taking that ownership that if we put the team first, we can accomplish great things at Westbrook, and I firmly believe that.
I want to ask you one more thing, and I'll let Howie have it for a few minutes. I've run longer than I meant to, but I want to ask you about this. I'm a parent or I'm a kid, I'm a child. I think about I might want to come to Westbrook, private school naturally. You talked about the Christian faith, how important that is. What am I going to see if I come to school at Westbrook? Because, if I had a child and I was thinking about that, the Christian-based education is great with me. Tell us some of the things that Westbrook has to offer.
I think the first thing that would jump out to me is the loving faculty and adults that are in that building. Everybody at that building has the kids' best interest at heart. A lot of these people are retired public educators that did it for 25 to 30 years or more, and they still have the passion and drive to want to teach or coach. The administration there, Rachel Neal, our principal, her mom, Cindy Greer, was the principal there at Westbrook before her for 30 plus years. Her brother, Brandon Greer, was a great receiver there when Brody was a quarterback. The family atmosphere about it, the atmosphere of what you're getting on a daily basis. From everything from the administrators to the teachers to the lunchroom workers, and just the love that all those people have for the kids there. That environment is something that's really, really special. And it's really an unknown secret to a lot of people that are not involved on a daily basis. I learned that pretty quickly. So I think the environment at the school really sells itself. But knowing that those administrators and coaches and teachers really, really love the kids that they're working with. They're not there just for a second paycheck. A lot of them are doing it and don't even need to work, but they still have a passion for wanting to influence kids. And so I would think that would be the number one selling point as it comes to the school day. Athletically speaking, we've got a terrific athletic program. We talked a little bit about football needing to up its game a little bit, and boys basketball, Coach Neil Western, girls basketball with Jeremy Brooks. We've got two Hall of Fame coaches, our future Hall of Fame coaches. They're leading those programs. Basketball and football probably are the two sports that have been kind of dragging the back, so to speak, the last few years at Westbrook. Our soccer program boys played in the state championship game 2 years ago. Girls been in the quarterfinals this year in 5A. Golf won 2 championships in 23 and 24, and we're state runner-up this year in 25. Baseball team got beat in the championship game in 24. Volleyball team's been regional tournament area champions here in the last few years. We've got a great athletic program, so the extracurricular stuff that goes on there is really, really something special to go along with that school day environment. So I think there's a lot of great things to like about Westbrook. I know a lot of people, myself included, there wasn't many people out there that were more outspoken in private schools against private schools than I was when I was at Piedmont. I'll just be honest about it. From 2010 to 2015, I think I counted up one day from 2010 to 2015, Piedmont was eliminated in football, boys basketball, and baseball 9 times in that 6-year window by Madison Academy, and most of them were third round or later. So I've been on the other end. The last 5 times I think we played in the state champ, or five of the 7 times we played in the state championship game in football, it was against a private school. So I've been there and done that on the other side. A lot of my buddies gave me a hard time. They said, Smith, going to Westbrook, you're going in there and recruit all of Etowah County and this, that, and the other. And it didn't take me long to figure out we don't get high school transfers in football at Westbrook. Our zone for people to be immediately eligible is Rainbow City, and there's not a lot of places to move to in Rainbow City. So it's a very small school district that we have to pick from. There's another private school down there that overlaps with the city of Gadsden, but that's not us. And so the crowd to draw from at Westbrook Christian, you don't really attract a lot of high school type transfers, and then on top of that, you're talking about paying tuition to go to school. So that's another thing that not something I grew up doing, and I fully understand how that can be a sacrifice. There's a lot of people at Westbrook that are making tremendous sacrifices to be able to send their kids to school there, and I think that's one of the biggest testimonies to me is the number of people that we got, and it's an interesting dynamic because you got some kids that their parents are very successful and the tuition's not a big deal to them. Then you got the ranch kids that come from the terrible situations that a lot of them have come from, and the Big Oak Ranch is trying to give those kids as much of a normal life and upbringing as possible. And then you got the middle, probably 50% that are just middle-class folks like a lot of us were, and their parents are sacrificing, working an extra job to be able to send their kids to school there. So it really is a neat place, Bill. I'll be honest with you. I've been so fortunate to meet so many great people in my time there, and just that big melting pot of blending all those dynamics together and then trying to do it on the athletic field. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, Howie, all yours.
Coach, we appreciate your time. We kept you a little bit longer than we anticipated, but we don't know when we'll get you back on here. So we want to try to get everything in as much as possible. My only football question is, you've been at Westbrook for 2 years now, starting your 3rd season. Are you ahead or behind schedule where you thought you might be at?
I think we're ahead. I really do. I told somebody that, and this is not a knock on the kids. Any coach will tell you this at any place, any new coach. One of our former players, Bailey Blanchard, he's the new coach at Glencoe. There's I think I counted up, there's 14 new coaches in District 6 this year alone out of like 52 playing schools. When you go in and you're the new guy, you never are those seniors, coach. I got on the job June the 1st of 2023. And so the senior football players really knew me from June the 1st till we played our last game the last Friday night in October. They knew me for 5 months, basically. And, those kids played hard for us. They did everything I asked them to do, the best of their abilities. But they didn't really know me. You're hitting the ground running with summer workouts and going into practice. That first year group of seniors did not have much of a chance to get to know Steve Smith, the person. It was just workouts, practice, and let's go out there on the field, and we're trying to blend everybody together and win games. Last year was a little bit better because you had a group of kids that were juniors when you first got there that did get to see you through an off-season cycle, did get to see you through another summer, did know what to expect when the fall got there. But you're still talking about being involved in those kids' life for 17 months. That first summer and then the next calendar year. It's still to the end of their last game, that first weekend in November, you still had only been around them for about 17 months. I made the statement that I felt, because I had seen Westbrook's middle school team that was going to be the freshman and sophomore, or excuse me, the 8th and 9th graders when I first got there. I had seen them, and they were really, really good. Drew Knowles, before me, had done a really good job. They were on the cusp of being a playoff team the year before I got there. I think they were 5-5 that year and lost 3 games by a field goal in the region. But I knew that there was some really talented players coming. So I told somebody, I said, year 4, I think we really can make some noise. But after being there and watching how these kids have worked, I've kind of bumped that timeline up a year. I really think that we can be a team that we're just like anybody else. I mean, we can't have injuries. But I really think we can be a team this year that can make some noise in 3A. I firmly believe that. I think we're a year ahead of schedule, and I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, saying those things and I guess putting it out there, I kind of put my neck on the line because coaches are supposed to talk down their team and saying what we can't do. But I've got a lot of confidence in these guys. I've got a lot of confidence in our team. I think that we're going to make some noise this year, and so that's kind of a year ahead of plan.
Well, that's great. I know you've watched some of the shows that I've been a part of in the past, and look at that smile. You know what's fixing to come up here.
The Tyler Van Show, man.
Yeah.
You've been accused of turning the heat up in the visitor locker room. Is that accurate?
No, that's Tyler Van. You can't listen but like half what he says. He's he's really mad that my football ops guy actually caught wind that y'all had a Tyler Van show, and so we started watching it. And there's a couple times that I would text him during the show just to try to mess with him a little bit. And then, of course, knowing Ryan Clark and all, we've had a lot of fun going back and forth with the Tyler Van show. And so Kurt Durier, the guy that's my football ops guy, he was our play-by-play guy on our broadcast at Piedmont. He come with me to Westbrook. He's football ops guy. We give him credit all the time. He can dig up information just like the best CIA agent in the world. He can find stuff out, and he turned me on to the fact that the Tyler Van show existed. And so even tonight before I went on, I got to Kurt. I said, Kurt, I'm supposed to go on with Phil Harris and Howie Chaney tonight on a podcast. I said, do some digging on it, figure out what they're going. He said, you don't need me to do digging. He said, that is the creator of the Tyler Van show. And so we went back and forth with that. And he said, and he gave me the history. He said, remember, it was Howie and the other guy, and I think the other guy passed away maybe. And
No, don't get that started.
Don't get it started.
He's still around.
It was how he said it was Howie and somebody. He said, and then Phil came on 2 years ago or whatever. And I remember Phil talking to me about a show that he had, but I wasn't really familiar with what we was going to. But he started giving me the update. He had all the history on how long y'all been doing shows and who all y'all done shows with, but that was the calling card that he gave me. He said, you know these. He said, you know who Howie is. He said, don't you remember him on the Tyler Van show? So I hope Van gets word that we had a show on here tonight. He and I usually talk about once a week, so I'm sure he'll give me a good hard time about it.
I'm sure he will. And even off the air, he would mention about how hot that locker room was at Piedmont.
And listen, he came that first year I was at Westbrook, and he was in a brand new locker room with air conditioning. I told him I didn't want to hear no more crying about the locker room. Just always remember this, Van. He talked about the hot locker room at Piedmont. What he don't tell you is the year I had to come to Sylvania in the first round of the playoffs because we were third in the region with tiebreakers, he dressed me at the softball facility, and I had to get cabs to bring my kids back over to the playing field because it was about a half a mile away. I got a delay of the game. We got a delay of the game penalty to start the second half for not having the kids back on the field in time, and we left when the official come and got us. It took over 5 minutes to walk back over there. So I don't need Van to say anything about halftime accommodations and locker rooms.
Well, Coach, you brought 70 players and 14 charter buses for all them that night. I was there. I remember.
But that good times, good memories for sure.
Absolutely. You coached football, of course, and baseball in the past, and Miss Rachel has coached some things. Who's the better coach in the house, you or Miss Rachel?
She is. I just don't. She will remind me.
Off the record, who's the better coach?
Off the record, I'm still going to say she is. Here's the thing. I did coach slow pitch softball for 4 years when I was at Cedar Bluff, and she was coaching at Sandrock for 2 of those years. And we played either through regular season or county tournaments or in tournaments. I think we played 7 times, and my record against her is 0-7. So head to head, I can't dispute it. Head to head, I never coached a team that beat her team. So I guess that's all we got to go on. That's actual factual information. So I tell everybody, she had the upper hand. I think I could get her if she coached football, but I think she'd be a pretty good football coach though. She's pretty hard nosed and pretty wide open, so I think she could do a good job.
So if she gets mad at you, does she throw that up every once in a while?
She'll throw it up every once in a while. Don't even have to be mad at me. She'll just remind me of it from time to time that I never beat her team. So, but I'm very proud of her. I'm very proud of all the things that she accomplished as a coach. She did an outstanding job as a slow pitch coach. But then when she come back out after Savannah got in school and she came back out, I think I can't remember what year it was, 2013, 2014, whatever year it was, she started coaching softball at Piedmont. Just to watch her and bring those girls along. She took on the same philosophy of bringing the girls up from the youth league up and then get to see that pay off with area championships and regional appearances and four state tournament appearances in the final 8 those last 4 years. I was very proud of her. She did a great job.
I would now, since y'all got both elected into the Cherokee County Sports Hall of Fame in 2024, would she say she carried you in?
There might be some truth to that. She was a really good player in high school. Was on a couple of state championship teams there at center basketball and track, and then she went on to Gadsden State and played 2 years of slow pitch softball, and then had a really good 2 years with Coach McGinnis at Jack State there in their early years of the program. And the cool thing about that night, Phil, is I mentioned Joe Carpenter and Jason Howard being 2 of the guys that were my assistants when I first got to Cedar Bluff. Of course, Jason went over and had a great run of success at Spring Garden in football, which to those of us our age, football and Spring Garden was never synonymous. Just a wonderful job he did there. And then Joe Carpenter, I think, won 7 track championships at Cedar Bluff and was a long time. He just retired at Cedar Bluff a few years back, but he was there for 30 years. That night when there was 5 of us inducted, it was me and my wife, those 2 guys, and then Tori Davis, who was a great player at Cherokee County High School, but her dad, Doug, was another one of my assistants at Cedar Bluff when we were over there together. Just having a personal connection with all those folks, it was a special night. Very humbled by that honor, very thankful. And it was extra special to get to go in with your wife. That was a really cool night.
I'll make a comment and then 2 more questions, and we'll let you get out of here. We appreciate your time, Coach, and you're more than welcome. Come back on anytime. Hopefully, we didn't scare you off where you wouldn't come back. And
no, this has been fun.
I'm sure we'll hear.
I feel smart that I was able to get on this thing and it hadn't had but 1 interruption so far. So I feel pretty smart that I did the technology stuff right.
You're all good, and I'm sure I'll hear something as well as you from Tyler Van later on about this. I'm sure he'll see it. And but you spoke earlier about the chain gang that you had at Piedmont and at Westbrook as well.
Right.
I've been on the sideline at both places, and you couldn't ask for no nicer guys on the sideline to not only just tell you information about your team, but tell you how things are going and which players kind of look for and everything. And
right.
they were great to talk to at Piedmont and at Westbrook.
Well, I consider them an extended part of the staff. I want them to be great representatives of our school. I want them to do the best they can on Friday. I want everybody that has a job on Friday night to feel like their job's the most important job, because I think, I use this line with my kids: how you do anything is how you do everything. And I really believe that those jobs are important. And I'm so thankful to have, we got 5 guys there at Westbrook that kind of handle the 4 jobs, because you got the 3 guys, 2 on the ends, and we got the down marker and somebody doing the clip. And then we got 1 alternate in case somebody's sick or can't be there. And I'm very thankful that those guys are so dependable and reliable, and it rubs off. They come and do the Monday night middle school and JV games, and just having that taken care of and them not having to worry about that. And I didn't mention the press box crew or the gate workers or the parking lot people, but just knowing that you was going to have the same people every night at a home game, and they took pride in doing their job the best they could to make it a great experience, not only for the home team, but you want to treat the visitors the right way. You want to be hospitable. You want to treat people the way that you want to be treated. And, whoever comes to Westbrook, our objective is to beat that team every single time they come. But I want to always have class and try to treat those folks and treat their fans and and their coaches and their players with respect, and give them the best experience that we can possibly give them when they come to our place. I take it personal if somebody comes to our place and talks about a bad experience or how they were treated poorly. Coaches for years have always kept the locker room hot or whatever. Man, don't tell you the locker room's hot because there ain't no air conditioner in there, so it's gonna be hot.
Yeah.
But I want people to feel like that when they come to our place and played, that they were treated fairly, they were treated well, they were treated with respect, and let the team settle it on the field. Both teams are wanting to win. Let the team settle it on the field, but treat people first class when they come to your place. That's just how you're supposed to treat people. Treat them like you would like to be treated yourself.
Absolutely. Let's get to know Coach Smith just for a couple questions, and then we'll let you get out of here. What type of music does Coach Smith enjoy listening to?
I'm a country music fan, and I like 80s rock. So if you get my car XM radio, all my channels are classic rewind, 80s on 8, the blend. I like that. And then my other channels is going to be Outlaw Country, The Highway, Y2K. I'm a country music fan along with the 80s rock / pop.
Favorite restaurant or foods you enjoy?
Shoot, I like Mexican food a lot. I like Longhorns. That's probably my favorite of all the steakhouses. There's a great place in Rainbow City called Cape Side. It's a little seafood place. It's probably 400 or 500 yards from the school, but it's right there off 77. And I've become pretty much a regular at Cape Side. I really enjoy it. Our family, we have a birthday, our Mother's Day, Father's Day, whatever's going on. And typically our family deals, we'll go out to eat, and whoever the honoree is gets to pick, And so, that's something that we all enjoy. But those would probably be my favorites.
Are you kind of like you're a regular there? Are you kind of like the norm of that place when you walk in, everybody hollers Steve?
No, I'm not that regular. But probably of the places that I've eaten since I've been at Westbrook, it's probably been the one I've frequented the most.
And I can't let you go without asking. And you know what's coming up? The superstitions before a game. Is there anything that you have to do, superstition wise, or as Coach Sparks told us from Fort Payne, routine wise?
I say I'm not superstitious. I just don't believe in changing. But I think probably the things that my kids, my own family, and the players and all, I'm notorious for wearing the same khakis and a Westbrook shirt. So I think more or less my clothing attire would probably be my superstition. I just I did it long enough at Cedar Bluff and at Piedmont, now at Westbrook, and everybody just when they put me on the float or whatever at homecoming and got me up there, they've always got me in khakis and a Westbrook shirt or whatever, So I guess my big superstition was just I want all the coaches to wear khakis. We don't wear shorts when it's 100 degrees. We still wear khakis. I talked about the players wear black shoes, white socks. I guess my main superstitions is more or less on trying to have a routine and then how we dress.
Well, Coach, here at the very end, we had a comment from one Tyler Van saying, "Has the air started working in the facilities?"
He knows the air works at Westbrook because it's in there. So I appreciate Coach Van tuning in and making sure that he got me back on that. So that's pretty good stuff. But Coach Van, man, you're talking about one of the best young up-and-coming coaches in this state. I'm really excited to follow his career and see all the many things that he's going to accomplish over the course of the next 25 years, because I think he's one of the best in the state. And I think the same about Michael Davis at Geraldine, and then some of my former players are starting to get their opportunities as head coaches. I think Buddy Blanchard been another one to keep an eye on. It makes you feel a little bit old, but very excited to watch this new generation, new wave of coaches that are out there, because I think there are some really, really good ones out there that are young and their 30s or younger and are going to be around for a long, long time.
Coach Blanchard, he's at Glencoe, right?
Yes, sir. He's first-year head coach at Glencoe. He's been an assistant down there with Coach Martin, and they named him head coach. And so I went by and visited with him about 3 weeks ago on my way home one day, and he was showing me everything that he had been doing in the locker room and things that and he's just working there till, late nights every night, just trying to make that place the best place that he can. And I'm excited to watch Bailey's growth and all. I know he's going to do a great job. I hate that we have to play them because they're our opening game of the year. We open with a region game with Glencoe week 1. Now he plays Southeastern, I think, in a week 0 counter. That's his first game as a head coach, but then his first road game as a head coach will be at Westbrook in week 1. So, I certainly wish him well and want to see him do great. His dad obviously was a very special friend of mine and a great helper for me the entire time that I was at Piedmont and at Westbrook the first year, and certainly miss Coach Blanchard on the sidelines, but I'm looking forward to seeing his son be able to carry on that coaching legacy.
Yeah,
Goodness,
we need to
Coach,
get him
do y'all
on here.
have
We need to get him on here at some point too. Now, before I let Howie end it here, do y'all play a fall game or is Glencoe your first game?
Hoax Bluff and I are playing a jamboree. So
Okay.
Coach Rob and I did that last year. He moved back up to 4A, so we lost him out of the region. But we played a jamboree at our place last year, so we'll play at Hoax Bluff at that week 0 in a non-counter. Probably a half of varsity, probably, and then a half of the younger guys. But give us a chance to get some film on our guys before. The one downside to the 9-team region that we're in is we come out of the gate with a region game right off the bat. Glencoe week 1 is a region game, and then we play Welborn a region game week 10. So, where a lot of people are playing traditional rivals week 1, week 10, week 5. The only one that we've got a non-region game is week 5 with Mumford. And then we had to draw out of the hat what would be our other oddball off week, and we drew out week 7. We had a team from Tennessee that came down and played us for our homecoming this past year, but we weren't able to do back at their place because they reclassified and they didn't have that week open. But we picked up Tryon, Georgia, who Tryon, typically has really good football.
Yes.
So we're gonna go to Tryon week 7 so that we've got a full 10-game schedule.
Coach, do you not have
I'd like to see that.
AD?
Sir?
Do you not have pull with your AD director where you don't have to open up with a region game?
Well, I got pulled with the AD at Westbrook. I just don't have no pull at the AHSAA. It would make more sense to me, and this is just me speaking, what they do in a 9-team region, everybody's off week 5. So right in the middle, everybody's off. And then we have to draw out of a hat because, yes, you play 8 weeks of region play, but you also have the one oddball week where you're the team that don't have anybody to play. And so we had to draw that out of the hat. So the people that draw week 1 off, well, you can still go find anybody to play. The people that draw week 10 off, you can still go find a lot of people to play. We drew week 7 out of the hat. So that's why we had an out-of-state opponent. There's not many teams that's not playing a region game in the state week 7. So there's just not a whole lot of people to pick from week 7. And so that's how that all worked out. Likewise, teams that are in a 7-team region, they still have 1, 5, and 10 off, but then they have an extra one. So one good thing that the state did a few years back when they started letting you play a counting game week 0, you could use that as a week. But if you do that, you automatically are going to have a bye week somewhere in your schedule. And once we start playing, I don't like a bye week. I'd rather play straight through. So my preference is to play a jamboree week 0 and then 10 games straight through if we can make it work.
Awesome. Coach, we appreciate your time. You're welcome back anytime, that you have time to be able to come on here. And before we let you get going, give a shout out to anybody you'd like to.
Shoot. And I get emotional when you start doing that. Love my family, love my wife, love my kids. Very thankful my mom and dad still around to support me, my sister, her husband, my in-laws, my nieces, family's big to me. I really, really appreciate all of them and their support that they've given me over the years and sacrifices that a lot of them have made for me to be able to do what I do. Shout out to the assistant coaches that I've had past and currently. I really appreciate them and their wives for sharing them with us and letting them be a part. Huge shout out to the support that we have from every school I've ever been at, the communities, the administrators, the teachers, the booster clubs, and really thanks to all the players, man. Players are what it's all about, relationships that I have, and still hearing from a lot of those guys that I coached at Cedar Bluff, still hearing obviously from a lot of the guys I've coached at Piedmont. That means more to me than anything, just the relationship side of it. So just very, very thankful I use the word blessed a lot, but feel very fortunate to have been around the people that I've been around during these last 32, 33 years. And it's extremely thankful for all the people that helped bring me up and raise me. I had terrific parents. My mom and dad, the best. They're Hall of Fame parents. But the people in the community of Central Alabama that helped raise me and coach me and led me in church and youth groups and all. My time at Jacksonville State, everybody that has been a part of my life has been instrumental in helping shape me to who I am today, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Coach, we appreciate your time. You're welcome back anytime, and hopefully the next time you're on here, then maybe Coach Van will apologize for false accusations about the heat in the locker room, and so. But Coach, we appreciate your time. You're welcome back anytime. So this is Beyond the Booth. Good night and God bless everybody.
Thank you.